look like we have that much public comment, but we might end up with it because we're on Zoom. So our agenda items are agenda item number 2 is discuss the proposed relocation of MS 421 West Prep Academy or MPS 145, the Bloomingdale School, to the Ascension School building. There is a sign-up form and public comment. I would like to insert just formally, even though we always do it, public comment at that point. So I guess that's 2B. And then agenda item number 3 is the vote for 16, which Kurland will be presenting. We will add agenda item 3B, which will be public comment at that point as well. And then we will go to agenda item 4, which is new business. To set the stage a little bit, at a committee meeting, we're usually about an hour and a half long. We do have 2 agenda items tonight, so I'm guessing we're going to go 2 hours, but we'd really like to hold it within that line. So that's why we have 2 public comment meetings. Since vote for 16 is the second main agenda item, I want to make sure we get to that in a timely manner. So we will ensure that we go to that by 7:30 at the latest.
And just let me know what you want me to restrict myself to in terms of your time.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be overburdening,
you.
just try to get the points across and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if for any reason we don't get through the entire 2A first public comment section, people can hold out and speak at 2B, sorry. And they can speak at 3B if they would like. So there are 2 opportunities to speak. The sign up for public comment was online. I think everyone who's here in person was able to access that and sign in. Just shout out if you weren't able to, we can always accommodate that. We're not gonna push it off. And we have a new committee member. Would you like to introduce them, Kevin?
Yes, so we would like to introduce our newest committee member, Murat, Akaydin, who is currently going to law school at NYS at the CUNY Law, and he has a full-time job, and we appreciate him spending time with us and finding time to spend with us. So welcome to the Youth Education and Libraries Committee. We look forward to your many contributions.
Thank you.
Yay. So our first agenda item is the possible relocation, or the more formal, I should have said, reciting of a school in District 3. To set the stage a little, I do want people to understand our role as a community board, which essentially, according to the DOE, is we have no formal role. That's the way they treat us in this process. However, we don't like to meet about things just to waste all of our time. Right? As community boards, there are many places where we don't have a formal role, but we do sometimes speak up on behalf or get involved in issues. There is not, when we don't have a formal role though, there is not a clear path forward for that. So it really varies depending on the situation, and we have to interpret what we can do and what might be helpful or what might not be helpful. So we don't really have a path laid out for us yet. I did invite, I'm happy to have Sedalia Costa come speak to us tonight. And Sedalia, you should join us at the table because you're the guest speaker. All right, just like Al.
Where do you want me to go?
You can take that seat. I don't know whose coat.
I won't touch it.
All
right. Hi.
And Sedalia, just to give you a little overview of what would be very helpful to us as a committee. This is news to us, so we didn't know. So we could. I'm sure you would like to share with us West Prep's concerns or opinion, but also just give us an overview of what's going on, like what the story is.
Yeah.
And then I'm really interested in what the formal time frame or formal process is from the DOE's perspective, if you know that.
I know what they've told us so far, but just first and foremost, this matter is very important to our community in Bloomingdale. Directly surrounding our school, West Prep Academy and PS 145, which is located on 105th Street. We are an elementary school, but also a middle school co-located in one building. So we are very close to public housing, the Frederick Douglass houses, but we're also have a great geographic location right in the middle of the neighborhood. And so this is very near and dear to us as well, because if you've been on Community Board 7 long enough, you know that the playground, the inclusive playground, was partly because of a task force from Community Board 7 that they built a gold standard playground for accessibility and for children with all abilities. And they targeted our school, West Prep M145, because of the number of children that we serve with disabilities. So that's just a little bit of a backstory about the building and how important it is to our community. I am a teacher, a magnet school specialist. I liaison with the community. I work on recruitment with the school, recruiting families, and then also engaging with parents in the community and managing all those different partnerships and fun stuff. So that's what I do at the school. So we were told that the school would be relocating and that there was a proposal that we would be getting. So this all started a few years ago before COVID. The two schools were sharing the space harmoniously, but they started talking about the elementary school started expressing concerns about space a few years ago and the need for more space. And so last year, it really started to come to fruition when we had the Office of Space and Planning visit the building. And this is a DOE office that determines what your footprint should be. So you have X number of students, you should have this many classrooms, you have this number. So they came and they visited and they toured both schools and we showed them all of our different spaces. And they followed up with an email, and I have it here and I will submit it. And I also submitted it to the community board outlining that although the schools are both using and programming their children in creative ways, that at the moment, there was no need to increase the amount of space of either school. So although the elementary school was claiming that they needed more space because they have a very wide variety of programs, but they don't have the space for all those programs. So the DOE explained to them in the meeting, but then it was followed up with an email because the issue they wouldn't kind of let the issue go. So that was a little bit frustrating for us because we don't have a space issue. We're happy in our space. We love our space. Our children are thriving in this beautiful space. And we were actually pushed out of a building on 77th Street 13 years ago. We were 14 maybe. They said, we'd like this school to move. At the moment, there wasn't much organization. It wasn't a thriving school that had really established itself because it was so brand new. So they took advantage and they moved us from 77th up to 105th. And for the past 12 years, we've really thrived in the space. So West Prep had a big part in the playground. West Prep, which was city council funding through Gail Brewer's office. We had a big part in all of the auditorium renovations. That was a proposal I submitted on behalf of both schools, obviously. So now we have a state-of-the-art auditorium. It's beautiful. Cafeteria grants to beautify the cafeteria. I liaison that with the wellness in the schools. I don't know if you've heard of them, but they bring chefs in. So several partnerships that we liaison and we forge to create and improve this building that we were placed in. And so we've really enjoyed it. We love it. We don't have an issue. We never had an issue. We never asked for more space. We have been working tirelessly to make sure we recruit to try to fill our classrooms, etc. So for us to be told they want to expand and they want to have more programs, they want to do this. So it would be best if you relocate. It does not make sense to me. We're both public schools. We both serve the immediate community. Almost 30% of our students are from just the Douglas houses. This is public housing, but many of our students are from the area surrounding the school. These are neighborhood kids. And so after we met with the Office of Space and Design, they said that neither school is operating in an excess of space. There's no reason to shift the rooms. And even though PS 145 has increased their enrollment due to a Russian dual language program, which is a citywide program, it's not just for the community members. So anyone in the city can attend this program. You just need to kind of manage your programming and your rooms a little bit better. That's the gist. You can read the actual words. So to us, we thought it was done. was over. The community board was CC'd on this. And in September, in September, we come in and we're told the chancellor is visiting because of the space issues, which did not make any sense to me. Why is the chancellor coming? Unbeknownst to us, we did not invite him, nor were we informed he was coming until the day before. So that was troublesome. So clearly someone knows the chancellor. Like, why would he just show up? He showed up with Gail Brewer, which was upsetting to me because I felt that we had spoken to her. I had at least at length about what was happening and trying to give a clear picture of our side. And there was a member of the PEP, his name's Naveed Hassan, and he had a part in all of this. And I see him responding and pushing after the Office of Space said, you're good. He's continuing to push this. He's a member of the PEP. And so if you don't know, and for anybody in the public that's listening, the PEP decides who moves schools. They decide. There's a vote. There's 12, 13 members. They're appointed by the mayor and the borough presidents, and they decide who has to move. So to me, this doesn't make any sense, and it's upsetting because these are our children. They're in our community. They're thriving. Our school is a showcase school. They come to watch how we teach because we're doing such an amazing job with our children of color, minority children, and also our special education children. And also the kids who live there. They live right near the school. And we have some of the highest growth numbers in the city. And that means if you're here, we put you here. If you're here, we bring you here, right? So that's the part that just got to me because I said, okay, we don't know anybody. We're not connected. We're not on the PEP. Our parents don't show up to millions of CEC meetings in the evening. Our parents also don't complain very often because they're quite happy with our program. And they don't need to. And there's nothing, and we don't have space issues, and we don't push that on them to go out and fight for us. But this really, I find it very troublesome that a member of our school community, which is both schools, has placed himself onto all of these different committees up until he was able to get to the top, and now is communicating with the chancellor and calling upon these meetings because it was settled last year. So that is what happened. Now, fast forward to December, the superintendent tells us, we have a proposal for you to move. Come take a look at this school. The principal went and looked at the school alone, and it's the Ascension School, which is on 108th Street. It is a rundown Catholic school that was closed. It's archaic, and it has not been touched in years. There's evidence of rodents, there's bad lighting, there's safety issues. It's not up to DOE code for anything. They show the principal the school. He's gracious enough to say, all right, I will take a look because why not have a big giant building and we can just grow? Let's take a look. We take a look. He says, I do not think my community is going to be on board with this. I have very big concerns. The superintendent brings it to us, this SLT and the parents, and we say, let's go take a look. We take a look and we immediately respond to him like, no, there's 8 million reasons of no. Number one is, why do we have to move? We didn't come to you with a problem. So why is the solution that we leave? So we looked at the school and we've had meetings, and now we were told that this is going to go before the PEP in March. The PEP is this committee that decides who moves schools.
Excuse me, what does it stand for? POP?
PEP, Panel for Educational Policy.
And actually, I'll interject there because there's one characterization I think needs to be clarified for the role of the PEP. And we've discussed other things that go to the PEP. They don't initiate any school changes. Like they don't come up with the proposals for truncations, closures, resightings, any of that. But their role is that they are like the final vote for all of that. Any changes in school sizes, sightings, closures, that sort of thing. The other role, the primary role, the Panel for Education Policy plays is approving the DOE budgets, and it's primarily a lot of the contracts, or all of the contracts have to go through them. And there's been a long-standing concern around the PEP in that the majority of seats are appointed by the mayor. So it has not been a very powerful body as far as what it can do, right? Like our school system is under mayoral control. The body that's supposed to be the check and balance to the mayoral control is appointed primarily by the mayor. So that's like the broader kind of context around.
Problematic. I mean, so if
Yeah.
the mayor appoints a majority of this board, and then the mayor appoints a chancellor, so now you have a chancellor and a board, and they're the ones that, and like Kristen said, they do other things. I'm sure
Right.
they do lots of jobs, but that doesn't apply right now. What applies is that they have the final vote. And that vote is happening in March. And we just found this out as a community in late December. The tour was December 19th.
Kristen, can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So you said that the PEP, they don't come up with the proposals. So where do those proposals that they vote on originate? And this one in particular?
Right, I need to get clarity on it, but I believe that space management is the one who designs the proposals. But where the spark of idea comes from, that is not clear,
Mysterious.
but.
How
that's a
mysterious. Are you all just
But-
wondering where they came up with this brilliant
But
idea?
but it's space management is in charge of all the spaces, right?
And that's part of the DOE.
That's part of the DEO, yeah.
Yes.
many
And
executive
so-
bodies.
At this meeting, I thought last year when space planning spoke to us, Naveed mentioned Ascension. I said, what, how do you know what school is empty? How do you know these things? And he mentioned Ascension and I thought, oh my gosh, please, no. Like, no, it's archaic. There's no yard. There's no outdoor space. And then the DOE is trying to come up with all of these solutions to this problem. And I'm thinking there's a better solution, and let's take a look at the other school and their programming and see what we can do. And I don't feel that it's ever been even considered, or that both schools were even invited in to talk about their programs and talk about their challenges together. I don't think that anybody has fact checked any of the claims. There's been a lot of articles in the West Side Rag and the New York Post and places about overcrowding but I don't know if anyone's actually gone into to really look at it under the microscope and think, okay, what is this? Or at least offer creative solutions. Yes.
Well, seems to me that the parents and their relatives of your students need to speak up in a very assertive manner. Scream, yell, complain. You don't have to put up with this.
So we're here. We had our town hall last night and there was hundreds of people there who screamed at the superintendent. And children as well. And I have letters from families and the children that I've brought. But at this point, it's very frustrating because it seems like this whole thing is coming from the top down when it's not supposed to go that way. It's supposed to start from the ground up.
Oh, but this is the point.
Hang on, Audrey, we'll
I'll stop
hold it, yeah.
in 1 second. Top down has to react to bottom up.
Okay.
You've got to make their lives miserable.
Thank you.
And it's so easily done.
Okay. thank
Maybe
you.
I'll interject this here, because I realized I was negligent of mentioning this at the beginning, so I was like, I'll mention it at the end. That Sedalia is presenting the presentation from her perspective, which is from the school community of West Pratt. There are 2 schools in that building, right? 145 is the elementary school. I did invite them to come speak to us tonight. This is on me. I didn't get it together and I only invited them yesterday. So they were like, no, we can't.
I
get
have
it
a
together."
question. Have
Hold
they
on,
ever
hold on.
asked to come to a meeting?
Not on this issue, no, but they will have a perspective. I told them if they couldn't make it tonight, that I would invite them and they could come to our next meeting, which would be in February.
But at any
Right.
point over the past several years, they could have come to the community board and presented this as it.
The issue was raised actually at one of our meetings earlier this
education?
year in this committee.
Mhm.
Because Naveed Hassan came and presented to us on another issue where we had him come with his pet hat. Because we do know that, like other members here, we've been on a bunch of different committees, we tend to wear more than one hat.
Okay.
So he was presenting from his presentation on the PEP, but then we did ask him to speak to us about other community issues, and he just flagged that there may be, you know, a crowding issue at 145, but we didn't elaborate on it at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Actually,
you.
could I just?
Yeah.
Try to clarify a couple of things. It sounds very much like it's we and they.
Mm.
We meaning West Prep almost versus 145. I don't know, that's the way it sounds, just what I'm hearing. I see here, discuss the proposed relocation of West Prep or 145.
Mhm.
So this proposed relocation from CEC to Ascension is for one or the other or both of you?
It was presented to us at our school leadership team meeting that
Now, at the school leadership meeting was 145 represented.
there was two separate meetings. The superintendent would have one with us and then one with them. And each time he would have the meeting, he told us this is option A is West Prep to relocate. Option B would be 145 relocate a portion of their program rather than their whole school. And he said, but I prefer that West Prep relocate. And that was his preferred choice of the two choices when he presented them to us. And so, as you imagine, 145 also was not crazy about the idea of having half their school in one building and half in another building. So they weren't happy about plan option B, and there's been yet to be an option C articulated clearly to us at all. So it's basically, I'd like you to move, is how I'm translating it.
And
No.
can you just, sorry, paint a
Okay.
picture for us about the size of all the spaces? Like, how
Yeah.
big is Ascension?
many
How
and
big is
how
West
many?
Prep? How big is 145?
Yeah.
And then also kind of what's the growth rate been? Because it sounds like they're responding to growth, but it sounds like you've grown, but you've grown into the space. But again, I don't want to put words in your
No, it's
mouth.
fine. I mean,
You haven't outgrown the space.
so the Ascension building is, I believe, 5 floors, 4 or 5 floors. There's 16 total classrooms. There's a basement with a cafeteria, and there's a gymatorium. So that means when you walk in, it's a hardwood floor in a big open space. That hardwood floor is supposed to be the gym and the auditorium at the same time. So if you were to have a show, we have a marching band that performs twice a year, you would have to set up chairs for the show to, you know, to see the show or to use the auditorium. Other than that, it's a gym. It's not much of a gym. It's really just a hardwood floor painted with a lot of lines to look more like a gym. There's some basketball hoops. So it was kind of, seems to be converted. There's 4 floors. There are fire escapes in every single classroom that lead out into a staircase of doom. There's lots of nooks and crannies and small spaces. It's very outdated, as you may know. A lot of Catholic schools didn't really have a lot of money to be constantly updating state-of-the-art anything. So it looks like it hasn't been updated in decades. It looks the same.
Schools have. Few schools have.
Well, the Bloomingdale School is a beautiful place. It really is. We have an atrium, a garden. We've been thriving there on the first floor, and as co-located schools, we both take on programs that will help diversify our population. We have an ASD NEST program that diversifies our program. It's for children on the autism spectrum who are high functioning academically. And so it's a small program though. It's 5 children per grade. So 5 and 6, 5 and 7th, 5 and 8th. 145 has a variety of programs as well that they've taken on, but many that, I mean, from my point of view, like you said, there's always 2 sides. Many of their programs are optional or don't have to be as large. So for an example, they have an early childhood program of pre-K and 3K. Wonderful to have early childhood. That's great. They have 5 classrooms dedicated to that. And they only have 2 floors plus a few pre-K classes on the first floor. So
Okay, and these 5 classrooms usually filled. Is there a need for 5? I'm trying to get a breakdown of the population.
any school, a school decides how many pre-Ks they want to have. It's an optional
The
program.
community doesn't determine how many.
No, the school gets to choose that. So the school has chosen to have 5 early childhood classrooms. according to demand from the community.
But that's what I mean.
But there are several early childhood spaces available throughout the community in Douglas, in the Children's Aid Society and surrounding, so that everybody loves a universal pre-K. It's free from but it's also a luxury in New York City to even be able to attend a universal pre-K or 3K. And 3K is like that, but for 3-year-olds, because it's free and it goes from, and it's a 6.5-hour program where most UPKs are a half day. So it's an option. It's great. Most schools have a pre-K, but they don't have 5. So now there's been a lot of outcry from the community because they've cut the arts and technology and all of the enrichment classes. So there's also a Russian dual language program that requires 1 class per grade. In total, that equals 7 rooms. So you have that 7 plus the 5, that's 12 rooms in the building dedicated to 2 optional programs that are not required. I think that, I have opinions, but it's not my school about that, but I feel like it should at least be looked at and considered. And we have programs as well. We use 11 classrooms. West Prep uses 11 classrooms in the building, and we operate within those rooms, and we are very creative in the way we program our children. So we have special ed services. When our children have required special ed services, those teachers take the children into an empty classroom to give them that service. Those teachers don't have their own classroom just to provide them with the service. So that's one creative thing that I noticed we do. We have,
That's like SETS programming, you're saying?
it could be
Doesn't
SETS,
have-
it could be speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy. There's lots of special education services that children require, and they do require their own unique space for that. So we are programming our children to try our best to fit in our space. We don't take on all these other programs that we don't have room for. And it's not fair, and no other school in the district has 2 dual languages. They also have a Spanish dual language. Makes sense. We have a high Hispanic population in the community.
Okay, West Prep has 11 classrooms and 145 has how many? Do you know?
I don't know.
But do you know rough enrollment for 145? Because they are apparently a 3K pre-K through 5th grade,
Mhm.
right? So they
Yeah,
just grade wise, there are more grades, whereas West Prep is a middle school, so it's 6 through 8,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So they have 3 early childhood grades plus the 1 through 5, so that makes 8 grades that
Right.
they've created. So we have 3 grades, and we haven't tried to make more grades.
And roughly, like, I've been in the building, so I kind of have a sense of it, but for those who haven't been, like, a picture of the Bloomingdale School is, I'm gonna guess 3 stories, that building?
It's 3 floors, the second and third, the entire second floor and the entire third floor is for PS 145, with the exception of the gymnasium, and we, and then the first floor are our 11 classrooms, offices for the principal, counselors, and then the back wing of the building facing 104th are the early childhood classes, which are the elementary school. So we co-locate the first floor, and then the second and the third are dedicated to 145 for the most part. There's
Yeah.
a few trickled in shared spaces like the library, teacher's lounge and things like that. So I'm
What's
quite,
the major question?
what do we do when you feel that
And
there's a
we is
person,
who? West
our
Prep?
school on
West
behalf,
Prep?
yes, and we want to present to you that we have many, many families that live here in Community Board 7, in this district, in District 3, and we need your help, and you need to help us amplify the voices of your constituents who live here.
Amplify your voices to say what?
To say we don't want to move and we do not want to relocate to a building where we do not have a space.
Okay, and we don't know how 145 feels about any of this. We don't.
I don't know, or you don't know.
They
We don't
haven't,
know.
we don't know because they haven't come to
I'm
present to
just
us.
saying, we don't know.
Yeah,
We,
as a committee.
Doesn't know.
Correct, but
I reached out in December and asked to be placed on this agenda, and Kristen placed me on the agenda. It is free, anybody can come here, it was not,
right.
I don't know anybody.
Contentious
So the-
about it.
Yeah, so I'm
just
saying, that's
we
why,
don't know.
Correct.
no, you don't.
So
Okay.
you were right to point out, like, as a committee, I think we do need, before we draw any conclusions, we are just trying, today is to like
Mhm.
find out as much as we can, but we certainly have to hear from the other school community that's directly involved,
Yeah, or
right?
if we're going
And
to,
they've already indicated from what we hear, like the scuttlebutt, I have not had any formal conversation, is that they don't want to be moved either,
No.
right? Because the move for them, because they're bigger, it sounds like they could not fit in this Ascension building as the entire school. So it would be a portion of the school would be shifted.
see, as Kirsten said, we don't have legal as, authority.
Mhm.
Our strength is advocacy.
Mhm.
And if we don't know, we can't advocate. And I don't know as I'm sitting here tonight, what 145 feels. I don't know.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay?
I don't want to speak on behalf of PS 145, but I did speak to a few parents and Naveed back in March, not in my capacity as a community board 7 member. But the reason why the PS 145 population is so large is because they've been a safe haven for migrant students who are coming into New York City. So I do think it's a huge issue to find additional space so more students can thrive and students can have programs that they should have, because the Russian dual language program and Spanish dual language programs are meant to support students who are refugees from all over the world. But there needs to be a balance finding ways in which both schools can be happy in the limited space that there is.
So just so that you understand, every single school almost in the district has had a huge influx of migrant asylum seeking families. And the number of children that 145 got is not any higher percentage wise than any other school. We all have this influx of children and we've all made accommodations to our program and our building. And we don't go to the news or reach out to the media about it. But there are plenty of schools that have many students that have come in the recent years. And it has been, it's something to talk about and it's something to plan for. Our school added a second teacher in the room so that those Spanish speaking children are not lost. But we don't teach them any less than what they should be learning already. So they're learning biology, they're learning algebra, they're learning US history, but we've had to accommodate and scramble and find Spanish speaking staff members to be in the room with them to co-teach. It's a co-teaching model. So we have so many ESL students. We went from having 1 or 2 children a year out of the entire school as English language learners. And now we have almost 30, and that's a huge population. Our school is 175. So you're looking at like what, over 20% in just a year. So it is not their burden. And that is a narrative I'm here to change and make sure that this is known. There is not one school that has not been impacted by this at all. And we have as well many elementary schools.
Yeah, we did a resolution on the New Yorkers. And that was part of the conversation, was that now that it has impacted every school in the district, New Yorkers are distributed across the district. But
And I urge you to research those numbers in all of the elementary schools to find out what is happening, and the middle schools and the high schools, because we've had to make changes to our program happily, willingly, and ecstatically, but there's been some issues. If you ever have another meeting about it, I'd love to come and speak about it.
we're gonna hold you here, Sedalia, though, because I have some questions, but I want the other committee members, and we have 3 committee members remotely. I want them to speak up and ask questions
Okay.
as well. So does anyone else have questions? Go ahead.
I'm going to 3 more remote here. I see.
Sorry, I'll interrupt for a minute. We
Okay.
have Michele
I
Parker.
see Michele.
I'm imagining that we have them.
Okay.
I think Avi is on there. I see him, and I
Hi.
don't see Alex Bell. Oh, no, Alex is not remotely. He's absent. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So 2.
So I just have a question. I don't fully understand where like we fit in versus the CEC. PEP seems like above the CEC, like. can
Yeah,
you-
PEP is above the CEC, so again, this is to the best of my knowledge, but I'm not 100% on this.
You're
Okay, we have no formal role in this. Like the way the structure is actually for recitings and things like this. They don't even the Community Education Council, which is kind of closer to the ground on education issues, doesn't have a formal role, but it often becomes the site of discussion and debate because they host the entire education community.
Right.
But the structure is that it actually comes from, like I said, this Division of Space Planning or Space Management, I might be mixing up their name. They manage like what enrollment is, what the footprint is in various schools. It goes through the superintendent's office and ultimately gets approved or disapproved by the panel for education policy. I will say the panel for education policy has stopped this. And like any reciting, any movement, any closure, as far as I'm aware, 0% of the time. Is that true? I'm not totally sure on that, but
Wait, meaning it always goes through.
It always
It
goes
always
through,
goes
they're
through.
appointed by the mayor. and-
by the time it gets to their vote, it's usually a done deal. So actually, that does segue, because I know that the superintendent presented to you last night, and he gave you that date, but were there other interim dates for different actions?
The superintendent told us that we would have to receive a proposal. And then once we get the proposal, we have, I believe you have 45 days to cast the vote. And then that vote has to be decided 6 months before it takes place. And so this proposal is for September.
And the vote is by the PEP.
The PEP it will be put to vote at the PEP meeting in March. And we are supposed to receive this proposal by February. I think the first week of February. So that's what we were told. We'll receive a proposal and then it will go to a vote.
Proposal from?
From the Office of Space Planning. As a redesign and what this will look like and, the impact. And
You mean
so,
going to Ascension? And
Um,
that would be both 45 and West Front?
I don't know if they're going to make 2 proposals or if they're going to make 1.
I will tell you from being on the receiving end of their proposals, like when I was on the Community Education Council, you sometimes didn't get notice of that until like 20 minutes before the meeting.
You didn't receive the proposal.
Yeah. We're getting a proposal. We don't know how many, maybe 1, maybe 4. Let's see. But I do believe there's a town hall that has to be held, no?
So, great question. We were told that there would be a town hall last night. A joint town hall because it impacts both schools. If the other school is supposed to relocate as well, it would be a joint town hall. So suddenly we said, okay, we let our families know, everybody, we have a town hall. It's a joint town hall. Both schools will come. And suddenly people from the chancellor's office and the borough director of safety and all sorts of people who are in charge of safety showed up and started to question us about safety at the town hall. And I said to my principal, what is all this? Who are these visitors? He said, there are concerns. And the Parent Association of 145 said that they felt concerned. They sent an email to the chancellor's office, to the borough. So they went straight to the top and said they did not feel safe at a town hall.
At a town hall.
At a town hall, and they wanted assistance from the 24th precinct. And so when they came to the police and everyone came to ask us, we said there's absolutely no reason. Our families want to be there and they just want to have their voices heard. And we don't know what you're talking about. You look crazy right now. And so they left it alone. And then magically the next day, the superintendent notified us all at 3:00 in the afternoon that we would be having a town hall just with us. And that 145 would have their own town hall. And then maybe at a later date, both schools would have a town hall.
Joint.
A joint.
Joint.
Did they give you a time?
They did not give us a time. They did not give us a date. February 2nd is the proposal. I don't really understand the purpose of the town hall if it's going to a vote anyway. It's my understanding that the Office of Space and Planning doesn't really agree with this, but they have to write a proposal.
Have you looked at and we can do that separately too, I could do some legwork on it, there are chancellor's regulations around the time frame for all of this, right?
So there are chancellor's regulations and there are rules about the time frame. But there's been no public announcement yet about the relocation. And I believe there's a teacher who had looked into it, and we've been looking in to see if they are following along with what is supposed to happen as far as the timeline. And I don't believe that it's being followed exactly the way it should be. I believe it's being rushed very quickly, and it's not happening. But like I told you at the beginning, I seem to know why. Just like when we said that we had a petition, and as soon as we had the petition, people started to come to the school and question us. And then last week we had visitors come and question us about our safety, about safety concerns from other people, which was totally unfounded. We had a wonderful meeting last night. All of our parents spoke. We voiced our concerns. We tried to have our voice heard. It felt like it was falling upon deaf ears. The superintendent says he prefers us to move. I don't believe that's what's in his heart, but he says that we have to. The Office of Space Planning doesn't seem to be on board with this, but they have to write this proposal because they seemed very concerned. We did speak to Mark Levine's PEP representative. So each borough president does get to pick one PEP member. So I did tell you that they were mostly appointed by the mayor, but the borough presidents also appoint one. So Mark Levine's PEP member visited last night and spoke at our town hall, and she seemed very deeply concerned because this very same thing happened last year with the high school called Westside High School. And it was a fiasco, and they were forced to move to the east side.
You're entitled to due process. Yeah. Basically, both schools need to be in a level of building that's equal. It sounds very manipulative, and I don't know where the source is, but it looks to me like one of these schools is going to be in a building that's much less suitable than the other. And you have rights, you have legal rights. You don't have to be passive. I work for the Department of Ed. I know all about this. Not about you, but due process, rights, etc.
So we're in a place where we're not really sure if things aren't being followed, and we say they're not being followed, and we're trying to raise our voices, but when stuff is happening and being rushed, we really are in a place.
People raise safety concerns out of the blue.
Out of the blue, like it was.
Hang on one second, I just wanted to check, did we answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Do we have other committee member questions?
I just have two questions. I'm not sure if you have the answer to. One, what's like the timeline that they expect to move to school?
So they gave us a document that had it was only 4 pages long with a list of, and parents, I think you've seen it, Charmaline, you saw this list of improvements that they would do in time for September.
To Ascension.
For us to move to Ascension. So it was a lot of painting, we will install security cameras, update the Wi-Fi, update some electrical. They would seal off the doors in the classroom that lead to the fire escape that just goes down into an alleyway. It's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
We'll seal it off, but it'll have an alarm, but it'll also have a cage. That's what we were told last night at a meeting. They also said, we want your feedback. We want you to tell us what else you would want from the building. They want us to produce a wish list, but you cannot produce a $4 million inclusive gold standard playground that we currently have access to. It doesn't exist. The building there's no outdoor space attached. So that's it. You can't build it on the roof. It's 100 years old. It wasn't part of the lease. They signed a lease with the Department of Education leased the building without consulting with us. And now they're looking at us like, well, we signed the lease. I don't wanna go, and we didn't agree.
When the Ascension School was in that space, what did they do for outdoor space?
They did, I think they just ran
They
around
often
and then
get the street closure, right? Yeah.
one of our parents raised a very valid concern about the street closure. And that is that we do have children, and her children when they were in our school had orders of protection from other parents, and she was a victim of domestic violence. And she said that she 100% does not want her children playing unattended on a city street. Obviously there'll be adults to attend, but it is a city street. And so closing off the streets, it's not safe, and there's a rat problem on that street specifically. So it is not a place for children to play. It's a dark street. It doesn't actually get a lot of sunlight. So no outdoor space. So we have looked, we've tried to be fair and gracious and open-minded. And I don't see why just looking at a school means that we have to go. And that seems to be what has happened.
And we're running out of time, so I want to,
Yeah.
any other committee member? Questions?
She already touched on my second question,
Okay.
just about like what renovations were they planning to do with the building?
It's only 4 pages. It wasn't, really.
Okay, so if we can go to public comment.
Yes, please.
Alex Crawford's gonna help call the public comment as it was signed up, because I think it's a combination of both people in person and remotely. Although I don't see a whole lot of people on the Zoom, so.
Okay.
Correct. And I'm just going to add as well, because there may be an increasing amount of people signed up, we ask that everyone keep it to about 30 seconds. So that way we can get through everyone, because we do have a hard stop on the meeting, and we do have another agenda item.
Okay. All right.
I'm also, I'm going to call the names, and if I see you on Zoom, I'm going to promote you so that you're able to unmute yourself. First, we're going to go to Ty Ellis.
That's our PA president. She's at the meeting with the mayor.
Okay, so she's not here.
She probably won't. Yep.
Oh, she's there. Okay.
She's in 2 meetings. But she may not be.
So I'm here. I am no longer I already testified at the other meeting. But I don't know if I'm unmuted or not, if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
We can hear you. Go ahead, Ty.
Just muted again.
But you can't see me. Can you see me?
Now we can see you. Your 30 seconds is going.
Okay, sorry. So I just having technical difficulties. Sorry. I just want to say that this move is not because we want this move to occur. And I think that you as community board members, we want to garner your support to be able to ensure that our children have safe environments to be educated in, and help us to stop this move, because it's not at any doing of us. We aren't causing a safety issue, and we continue to focus on education and extracurricular activities and all of the things that the children need to be socially productive and academically productive and psychologically safe. And we would hope that you appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Charmaine.
Hi, I'm Charmaine.
Charmaine.
My son is a 6th grader who just started at West Pratt. He is in the NEST ASD program. Sorry, it's very emotional for me. If you have an autistic child, especially if you're diagnosed young, school is a terrifying thing. And I had an incredible experience at PS 75, Emily Dickinson here. In fact, my husband and I, we moved onto 105th Street to be closer to Emily Dickinson. And when we found out that the NEST program was at the school on our same street, where our son can actually like walk himself to school.
Thank you.
And feel safe, and to risk a top-tier education. This will be my last sentence. It's really important. This is a school of all, the most segregated school in Manhattan Valley. It is black, brown, the only white kids honestly are in the nest school, and I would say this. The kindergartners going into the elementary school, the 90 kindergartners, only less than 20% of them actually lived in the neighborhood. It is so rare for a school with these vulnerable of a population to actually have top-tier facilities, top-tier education, and they are proving and demonstrating results. I was a former teacher. My mother is a professor of mathematics. My father was a science teacher. My father-in-law, a vice principal. This is top-tier education, and to take that from kids who actually need it the most is heartbreaking. So I hope you really think about who in that building actually is from our neighborhood.
Thank you, Charmaine. Sorry to rush you,
Thank
but
you.
I'm like, quick, we gotta get to the next speaker so they all have time. Go, Alex.
Next, we have Carmen Quinones. Carmen, you can unmute yourself.
We don't have you.
Carmen, are you there? I can circle back to Carmen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sabrina. Sabrina, are you able to unmute yourself? Okay, great.
Thank you for calling on me. And thank you, Ms. Costa. You have given quite a synopsis of what we're going through with the school. I think all I really wanted to add was that this is a much bigger building than what we are used to, and there is not the staff presence to support this level of this much bigger space. There's not the security for this, there's not the staffing for this, and so it poses a bigger problem, especially when you have kids who are so used to a small community, and our nest kids who really struggle with change and really struggle with then blending with 2 other middle schools. It can be quite difficult and problematic, in fact. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, we have Joanne Medina. Are you there in person?
No, she's probably on Zoom.
Okay, I don't see her on Zoom, but I'll keep an eye out for her. Carmen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So just excuse me 1 second. Hello, my name is Carmen Quinones. I'm the president of Douglas Houses. And we have a lot of children that attend these schools. We have concerns. We have doubts. I would like to first ask for a tour to see what Ascension looks like and what the proposal is. I understand they're going for a vote already. I'm confused because usually the vote does not come first, right? So I need someone to explain to me how did it get to a vote so fast without input from the community at large, actually. This is the first I'm hearing about it myself. And so how can we fix this where the community is more involved in this decision making? Community Board 7, you know, we've had our trials and our tribulations, but you know, there's a thing of that I call respect, and respect goes a long way. And when you're talking about parents changing their children and children getting anxiety attacks about moving, we have a lot of dyslexia children there. We have a lot of—
Carmen, you're a full minute over your time, but please wrap up.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. Okay, so what we need is a little bit more transparency on my part. So I know what we're dealing with. I have 3,000 residents here in Douglas Houses. A lot of them go to all these schools. So I would like some more transparency, and this vote has to wait until people can know exactly what's going on, and these parents have a fighting chance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jabril Salim.
Hello. Just to make it brief, Ms. Casa did a excellent job of just kind of highlighting and detailing some of the or most of the things that we're dealing with as far as trying to stay in our space that we're currently in now. I didn't really have much to add on top of that. It's just difficult being a teacher at West Prep and knowing that there are outside forces that are actively working against you, regardless of how you're engaging your students in the classroom and how you're supporting them, and essentially trying to move us into a space that has lesser accommodations. So we have the most special needs students in the district, and you're moving them to a space where they don't have access to outdoor activities. They're going to have lesser and lower accommodations. So it's just really unfair and frustrating. Then that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Rita. Rita, are you there?
Hi, sorry about that. I'm one of the founding members of the Bloomingdale Inclusive Playground. We started it back in 2014. We identified West Prep and PS 145 as the key partners for this playground. And Sedalia and I and another Shelley Fine are the co-directors of the Friends group for the playground. And they're, without getting into further details, they are the reason. West Prep is the reason, one of the primary reasons why that playground is there. So we really hope we can work together with the Friends group to try and, you know, at least redirect some of the idea of moving them out of that space. It is an inclusive community space that is really beneficial to everyone that lives in that community.
Thank you. I see Joanne Medina is on the call, so I'll turn to Joanne.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Costa did an amazing job, so thank you, Costa, for being there and advocating for West Prep. It's just very disheartening just hearing all the information, how they're attempting to force us out due to programs that they originally didn't even have space to have. We've been more than accommodating to all the influx of our refugee students, and we have done it very well. Costa did mention we are excelling with our test scores. We are doing everything that we can. Something to also mention is that a lot of 145 students do end up going to West Prep as well. So how would that work? And it's just really disheartening just to see just the amount of animosity from the other school. And this is why they are not present for a lot of these meetings, because they don't want to hear the facts. And honestly, the facts are the facts at this point, and Costa pointed out a lot of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Sharmali there in person?
Yes. I'm here in person.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Murat. I'm a parent of 5 children in schools in the district. I have 3 schools that my children go to. My oldest is the 7th grader at West Prep Academy. He's on the autism spectrum, also has ADHD. He is not in the master program. However, 3 of my other children are at PS 75 in the master program. I have a 5th grader who is really looking forward to going to West Prep. I know there's only 5 seats, but he has selected the school as his first choice. Knows that they have the programming that he's looking forward to. Bands, not so much, but we'll get into it when he gets there. The principal is a nurturing, loving, caring individual who has welcomed children like mine into the community. And so when I come to a place and I see a school, when I've spearheaded a garden revitalization project for both schools. I had actually texted Naveed during my planning process to ask him if parents from 145 would like to help with this project. I didn't hear a response. I didn't understand why. We said hello. In any case, this West Prep is such a caring, loving space. The students shared all of the great qualities that they love about the school. Alumni came back last night to speak to how amazing the school is. My son, who's my seventh
Please wrap
grader.
up.
Yeah, I will. This is the last thing I'll say. When he was in elementary school, the DOE turned their back on us, on him. He was, so his IP was set to send him to an on-campus school because the DOE couldn't handle his needs. Now, fast forward at West Prep, they tell me we don't know what the child can talk about when I explain some behavioral challenges that we experienced in elementary school. He's not presented with any of that at this nurturing level space. So I think that the place itself contributes to that. And that's why I oppose the reciting to the Ascension School.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that's our whole list. We are going to, we do see 3 hands up still on the attendees side. We'll go to those 3 and then we'll move forward.
Okay, thank you, Max.
Of course. Yep. Sorry to be such a stickler about time. Just there's a lot of hands and a lot of people wanting to talk.
Okay, so next we have Sharice Johnson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Costa, for eloquently speaking and representing West Prep. Thank you, Community Board, for taking the time to listen to us. So I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible. My son, when he found out about the West Prep school move, he said, well, what happened? I just got here. Okay. So he does have an IEP. And part of the reason why we picked the school was because of the area that it was in, because it had a low number of students. I didn't want to send my child to a middle school, transitioning from elementary to middle school with 1 million kids and get lost in it. Okay. So he does have an IEP, and the school has been so supportive. The principal, the PA president, all the staff. This was part of the reason why we chose the school. We went through the chancellor's process. You pick your first choice, second choice, then you get the school that you want, and now they're saying that they want to move the children out. I have no issues with PS 145. I've never seen any violent interactions or any problems with the students, and I have no problem with the New Yorkers. But again, as everybody has mentioned, these are kids from the community, from the neighborhood, who benefit from a small environment, who benefit from the nurturing of the staff at the school. They are thriving and they are doing well. He's been there less than 5 months, and I've seen him perform the music with the instruments in the showcase.
Please wrap up when you
gotten
can.
on the I will. Thank you, Max. He's gotten on the Super Scholars list. That was the goal. That is the goal, to help him succeed and get through these middle school years. The transition was beautiful. And I do not want my child to be moved to another building. I do want him to be moved to another school. And I hope that they hear our concerns, because we're going to be there fighting for West Prep. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to turn to Kasi Kuljornsen.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Hi. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person. We're having New York City issues, heat and hot water. But I want to thank you all for being there listening today. So I'll try to make this quick too. I am a mother of a 7th grader who I transferred into West Prep last year because my nephew was already attending. He graduated last year and now is high school. And my nephew does have an IEP. My son does not. But I transferred him into West Prep because of this. I have worked for the DOE also for over 20 years. I'm a legacy working for the DOE. My mother worked there as well. So I know hundreds of different schools, and I've been in hundreds of different schools all over New York City in every borough. And West Prep has always shown themselves to be very unique in how they treat our students, the families, and the community around them. Now, a building doesn't make a school. All that's true. It doesn't make the community. But from my son's experience and from my nephew's experience, moving them around is incredibly damaging to their psychological development. There's been, I mean, worlds of improvement in my youngest. He is the youngest of three. I have a high schooler who graduated just recently. And I can tell you that even if, you know, they do all these renovations that they say they're going to do, which we don't trust they will, because I know this is how it works. This is New York City. It doesn't work that way. That will not, it will harm our children. And in ways that, yes, some of them will be able to bounce back from, but will harm them in some ways that they won't be able to. And whatever improvements they make, the regression is what I'm most fearful of, for not just my children, but for the children who really need it, who need the elevators, who need that movement, and who need that stability and security of knowing that they're safe in the building they've already become comfortable in. This cannot be something we lose sight of in this, whatever proposals they make and whoever's moving. So thank you again for listening and taking the time.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Viola Simon.
Hi, my name, I'm Viola Simon. I've been a parent of PS 145 and of West Prep 4 times. My last child is about to graduate in June. Now, PS 145, they benefit from West Prep. We have built things, we have renovated, the garden has never looked better, if you ask me. Because when my oldest son was there, he's 23 now. He was there, I had to take him out and put him in PS 75. Then he graduated from PS 75 to go back to West Prep, and then he graduated from West Prep, and now he's in a top tier college. I also have my second oldest is 19, and he went from PS 75 back to West Prep. West Prep is a family, our family. I have never experienced anything like this in my whole entire existence of my children, growing up with my children, going to schools like this. I am very upset because of the fact that the family that we have created as a West Prep community shouldn't have to go through this. We shouldn't have to go through this at all. Now, we put our parents, our teachers, and our safety net. My sons, all 3 of my sons have had IEPs, and they have helped my children from the time that they were in there until the time that they left. All of my children are in college. My second oldest is about to enter college. He went to the top tier high school, and he's about to go into college. Now, my third oldest is in high school, in a junior high. He's a junior in high school, about to graduate in 2025 because of West Prep. They are the most. They are the most.
Please wrap up when you're able.
I'm sorry. With that, can I finish my statement though?
Sure, just concisely.
Okay, so my whole thing is that they just PS 145 it's us against them. It's us against them. This is not about the school that they're trying to move them to. It's not about the school itself. It's not about the safety. It's not about none of that. It's us against them. We have put so much time and effort into our children, and it's disheartening to the children that you want to put them in a grim and damaging school because of space capacity. That is not about the space capacity. It's us against them. We're bringing revenue into the school. We've upgraded everything that we had possibly could upgrade in that school. Before West Prep got into that school, the PS 145 was nothing but elementary school. The elementary school, you got 2 revenues here. You got the West Prep and you got the elementary school. The elementary school can also gravitate to West Prep.
You're a couple minutes past time. If you could just one more sentence, just wrap up.
Yes, my thing is that how can you displace a whole school or put them in another school when our children are thriving and they're graduating at the top of their class. We're not only students that's thriving, but they're going into high school with GPAs higher than anybody that I know, than any junior high school that I know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Max. Alex, do we have anyone else?
I think that's it on our end, actually.
And we didn't have anyone else in public. I'm sorry to rush the end of the public comment, but I just
No, I know you
did
have
have
another
another agenda item. The only thing I want to comment on is that last parent's comment, where she said it's us against them, I think is a really unfortunate trend that we see across the DOE, where I don't think this problem should be pitting two schools against each other, right? I'm confident if we heard wonderful things about West Prep tonight. I had the privilege of working with that school back when I was on the CEC. It is a lovely community, right? I love it. I understand why parents and families are committed to it. I also am confident that when we hear from parents from 145, they will love their school as well, right? And it seems crazy to me that in many situations we get these two schools pitted against each other, where really they are all part of the same community. And often the problem lies with the DOE and Central and the way these things are done, that it's not a communal effort, that both schools can't be involved as equal players so that they end up happily. And instead we get stuck in this embroiled and ugly fighting in a community that could be together.
I mean, we didn't have an issue with the other school. We currently don't have one. We were harmoniously co-located and we don't need more space. And we're not asking for more space. We're just asking to not be displaced or to be removed. We don't have a problem and we're not trying to make one. Like, just leave it be. And that's what we're asking. And this is very unnecessary and it's very confusing to me as somebody who's been in the DOE for 22 years. It's just unbelievable. That nobody's asked to hear my family's point of view until last night's town hall, when this is something that they have been working on for over a year.
Yeah, thank you, Sedalia. Thank you for bringing the issue to our attention.
And leaving my phone number here.
Yeah.
Please call or email if you guys have any more questions
So like,
or
thank
you would like to help in any way.
I just had one
Kristen?
short.
Yeah, we'll definitely reach out. Hang on, yeah, there are two questions. Actually, I'll ask.
Yeah, so.
Is it
I
for
think I
Sedalia?
heard- Yeah, first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I heard earlier that there might be space to defend Douglas houses for a few classrooms. Would it be possible to move just to 3K pre-K, refurbish those stations to be preschool appropriate, and then there would be more classroom space in the building?
That would be a possible solution, but again,
I'm asking,
I don't know. I can't speak to all of that because it's our building. All I'm saying is we are in our 11 classrooms and we should remain in our 11 classrooms. And people who have problems should go find other solutions that don't cause us to be displaced.
And I'm sorry, there's one more question.
I just had more of a process question for us about what our next steps are.
So for us, as far as process,
Yeah.
like I said, I did offer to the PS 145 community that if they'd like to speak to us, I will make that available. I haven't heard back from them yet, so I can't commit to what that means as far as our schedule.
Okay.
I think, actually we'll do the presentation from Al and then we'll circle back unless we want to do it now. I mean, my feeling, and I'm open to the committee members, is that at this juncture, we don't have a clear line of what we would necessarily like to do next, never mind what we can do next. But in general, if we were to take any next steps, we're not in the formal process, but what I would think we could do is help speak to elected officials or write some sort of letter. I mean, this is maybe a lack of my community board knowledge, and I'll refer to you, Blanche, might know more than me about it. What goes to like resolution level, if it's even useful to be at resolution level, or if it, to me, it strikes me as more useful if we were to take a position at a letter level to to like the chancellor and the mayor, right? But,
That would still need to be voted on by the board in order to
right,
send a letter, yeah.
right,
Mike-
which is actually maybe a process reason. It would have to go to resolution in order to write a letter.
Yeah.
No,
All right,
you're
Yeah.
saying resolution to write a letter?
that's what I'm asking.
I'm saying that there needs to be a way in which the letter represents
The board.
The board.
Yeah.
And its sentiments through.
I
a
guess my
some kind.
feeling is I'm blank until we hear the other side, since there appears to be such a schism.
Yeah, I agree. There is a big schism, so we're not like decision making tonight, but as far as possibilities.
My only concern is just the timing, because if this is gonna go to vote in March, like that's
Yeah,
a second in our community board time, you know what I mean?
right. No, that is true. We have the next YEL meeting is February 15th.
Right.
And
And
I'm
then
not sure when the full board is after that. It's
Probably
usually
first week of
very
March.
early March,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
And then
think
I don't
March
know,
6th is what I saw earlier, but I can check.
thank you, Max. And I don't, do you know the date of the March PEP meeting? I actually think they're throwing on a few different dates each month because they have so many.
It's not posted to
school
their
pages.
website, but they are going to have it, but they haven't posted it.
But I
Now,
think-
who's they?
The PEP has
Oh, the PEP.
Yeah.
created a meeting and they haven't posted it online, but they said it's going to happen. I would just like to say this. If the community board were to write a letter to the chancellor or the mayor's office
Yeah.
on behalf of this issue, I would please keep in mind, you're not taking a side by saying West Prep should not have to move. There are many solutions to problems, and there's nothing wrong with saying West Prep should not have to move. Now find a solution to your problem. And we're not saying you don't, that's not saying you don't have an issue. I'm not saying they don't have an issue. They would love to grow. Okay, you would love to grow. But this school is a part of our community. They have a right to stay, and you should not push them out. Those both things can be true. You can believe that other schools should be able to grow, but you can also believe that we should not have to leave. So I'm just gonna put it that way, and please hope that you act quickly. As you can see, we have the cards stacked against us, and it would be the least you could do.
Well, it
Yeah,
sounds to me as if
Kristen?
they're
Yeah.
suggesting that 145 move. Because you said 145 went to Ascension.
That is
Yeah.
what the superintendent suggested. I didn't
Well,
suggest
yeah,
it.
okay,
He wants to suggest
Yeah.
something that's implausible, because that just doesn't work. Have you ever heard of a school in 2 buildings at once? I have not.
Right, so like the new
Kristen, I
school.
just wanted to say that Avi has his hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I didn't see him.
And in
Go ahead,
addition to that, I thought Michele was raising her hand earlier. I could be wrong. Maybe she was. Okay.
Yeah, hi guys. Sorry my camera's off, just not feeling so well. Just in terms of what we could do, maybe we could write a resolution instead of saying what should happen, to request to slow down the process and ask for more community input and more community discussions in whatever format would be better. And that's something I think we could do now. So that way it's not taking sides, whatever that means, but something that we could do to ensure that there is more discussion on this topic.
That's a good idea, Avi. Thank you. All right, we will circle back to, I'm trying to put a pin in it just because poor Al has been waiting.
No, it's,
Is that okay if we circle back to Avi's idea and let Al give us his presentation for the vote for 16?
Sure.
All right.
Al, the floor is yours.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for being patient by
I know, look, to me, this is a heart-rendering experience to me. You know, because basically parents and students are in a tough bind. I think partially because of process and protocol by the Board of Education not being totally transparent and timely. And also has been the case for years and years and years, not respecting community voice. And you all as community board members, you are a highly educated, committed community voice, and whatever resolution you come at to try to improve the process, even if you can't fix the problem immediately, I think will help the city of New York in the long run have a greater balance between local voice and institutional pushing and what community has to have. So
Okay,
I benefited by experiencing this,
Well, I'm glad you could join us. Now tell us about your proposals, yes.
So, very briefly, as I said, my name is Al Kurland. I've been around advocating for young people since 1972. Spent 22 years working at a private school, a contractor with the Board of Ed to serve mentally handicapped and emotionally challenged children, especially children that could not be easily classified, and the Board of Ed could not get appropriate spaces for. So we became a go-to school to serve those children. And the reason I bring up that point, which may not seem related, is one of the lessons I learned working in that school is that the place that relying on stereotypes and labels has in working to the detriment of young people when they are misclassified or misunderstood because the labeling is not correct, or people have diminishing stereotypes about those young people. So the importance of recognizing young people for who they are, that every young person, despite the limitations maybe in cognitive development or emotional challenges, has certain ranges of amazing capabilities, and that we're more and more looking at the assets of young people and nurturing those instead of judging young people on what we feel they may not have, as human beings. I also spent 22 years working with the Police Athletic League, starting in 1998. And during those years, I adopted the role as a director of the Team Services Program. So we were in charge of youth employment, education for young people and getting them prepared and on the right track to try to get into college. About 98% of our graduates, wound up getting admitted to colleges in that PAL INSTEP program. And then overlapping those two experiences, I became involved in a community board campaign with your friend and mentor, Gail Brewer. And that campaign was initiated in 2006 to lower the voting age, not the voting, the eligibility age from 18 to 16 years of age. And that campaign lasted from 2007 until 2014.
eligibility for what, excuse me?
To serve on a community board. If the law had passed, it did pass in 2014, 16-year-olds became eligible to serve on boards. And the reason I bring up that aspect is, and working with Gail and working with community organizations, we encountered a tremendous number of stereotypes and negative expectations about the capabilities of 16 and 17-year-olds, many of which were based on what I call public perception of what a 16 or 17-year-old can do, which in most cases was just not true. It was kind of like an invented stereotype. And because the issue that often comes up is the issue of being educated or prepared, and to be able to engage in a civic enterprise or voting enterprise, there's no magic bullet because a person turns 18 years of age that then necessarily have the background, the experience, or especially in our environment, the civic education to become a good voter. We have over 100,000 kids that are 16, 17 to 19 years of age that have been pushed out of the educational system and are getting no education, but they turn 18 and they're magically deemed to be ready to vote. While at the same time, we have 16 and 17-year-olds that attend high schools and have AP classes in history and civic education that can't vote. So there's a serious disconnect there. So I think there is the issue, that we want to improve the civic education process. But we also have to be cognizant of the fact that to require a certain level of civic competence or educational competence in order to vote has actually been deemed unconstitutional by the Supreme Court because of the phony literacy tests that were imposed, especially in the South, to prevent people from voting. So yes, we want the education. We're going to push and push and push for it. And indeed, that part of one of the bills that we're advocating for requires an 8-hour civics class for every single high school student in New York State, specifically related to electoral responsibilities. Is that enough? No, it isn't. But I think what has happened, because people are becoming more and more cognizant of the fact that there's a push to get younger people to vote, there's also a simultaneous push to improve the civic education culture in our high schools. You know, Governor Hochul is pushing civic education bills. I know State Senator Robert Jackson, you know, has been a big proponent for civic and fiscal equity, you know, for New York City. Also has legislation that, if passed, would mandate expanded civic education, actually beginning in the 4th grade, or the 4th grade through high school. But I think those are positive developments. That's kind of the background. The legislation.
One question for you, the bill you just referenced, where does that stand now?
Okay, that is just going to get into.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. That also keeps me on track, not to stay on one topic too long, but to keep it moving. So the legislation was initially introduced in the state senate by Brad Hoylman-Sigal on the state senate side, and by Robert C. Carroll on the assembly side. That legislation, to my knowledge, was initially introduced in 2020. So in 2021, 21, 22, and there seems to be very little public visibility that the legislation even existed, because there was not people on the ground, both our own group and related groups, but also other civic groups in New York City and New York State that were even aware that legislation existed. So when the bill was reintroduced in 2022 for 22-23, and we became aware of that legislation, that's how Vote 16, you know, came into being. And that's when our advocacy efforts first started to bear fruit, you know, to try to gather other allies. So at present, there are actually 3 pieces of legislation. Initially in 22-23, there were 2 bills. One bill was to change election law, and that was in both chambers. And also, as part of that legislation, the 8-hour requirement for all high school students in New York State. But what happened was, when the bills were sent to the law committee on both chambers, they were told, no, you can't just pass these bills without changing the New York State Constitution. At the same time, because it would require amending the Constitution, which presently states you have to be 18 years of age to vote. So that's where the extra piece of legislation came in for this current year. So all that legislation is now sitting in the election committee in both chambers. I know on the Senate side, it has, you know, Brad Hoylman and 4 co-sponsors. And on the Assembly side, it has Robert Carroll and 13 co-sponsors. Typically, for whatever reason, that always seems to be more co-sponsors on the Assembly side than the State Senate side. So that brought us to the point, well, how do we generate support at a local level just for New York City? Because there are campaigns, I imagine, going on in Syracuse and in Albany, in Buffalo, you know, in Long Island, other places in New York State. But we have our hands full just focusing on New York City. So that's what I'll report on, you know, tonight, the New York City aspect. So the first thing we did is we went to Sean Abreu, who's a council person who represents North Harlem and the southern side of Washington Heights.
He represents us.
And us. He's
Oh,
our
he also,
representative,
okay,
yeah.
because they moved the district goes
Yeah,
down.
it's like around 96.
Okay.
Manhattan Valley.
So you got him.
Mhm.
So he came on board and he decided to sponsor the legislation about the state constitution. So in the meantime, Gail Brewer said, Al, what are you doing to me? We worked for 7 years together on lowering age for the community boards. How do you go to Sean first? And I don't even know that. So I felt appropriately like an idiot. Because how did I do that without going to Gail first? Because she used to say, you know, we were kind of joined at the hip in that campaign. So she said, well, she's going to draft legislation and cover the part about changing election law and mandating the classroom time. So we have 2 resolutions to support in the city council. So in consulting, you know, with our little committee, 2 of the people are former directors of an organization that used to be called Future Voters of America. And that's the organization that used to run civics classes in the schools because the Board of Education didn't have civic classes. And the way they ran the classes, they called it Action Civics. So a social studies teacher would be approached and Generation Citizen would come to them and offer a syllabus and training for the teacher on how to have students in your social studies class have a debate, prioritize issues of interest to them, come up with one priority, and then get involved in researching the issue, debating about the issue, gathering allies. So for instance, if the issue was homelessness, we had groups that would go to the Coalition for the Homeless or to food banks in order to gather momentum. And each semester they would do a presentation at a citywide Congress. They come up with a series of mandates. And initially they actually came up with a mandate in 2006 to lower the age to 16, which went absolutely nowhere. That's how the compromise came about to come up with the community board idea. Well, maybe we could lower the eligibility, and even that took 7 years. And then fast forward to now, you know, Future Voters no longer exists, but the 2 former directors, Fran Barris and Diane Grazik, are very involved. The 3 of us are the pillars of the Vote 16 coalition. And we have been able to, you know, reach out to other organizations who are much more widespread than we are across the 5 boroughs, you know, to adopt the Vote 16 campaign. So we have Generation Citizen that already runs Action Civics classrooms in New York City and also now in Upper New York State and 6 other states. They've adopted it as part of their agenda and are lobbying several states. The heartbreak for them is they did Culver City in California, and the initiative lost by 16 votes.
Wow.
So they'll be ready for 2024.
Were they involved in the ones that passed in Maryland recently?
They helped.
Right.
Not initially, like at the Tacoma Park and Highland Park.
Right.
Actually been voting at the age of 16 since, like, it's now 11 years.
Wow.
They've been doing it for a while, and that since then there are 4 other cities in Maryland that have also adopted it, following their example, and Burlington, Vermont.
And then, so they vote for local elections?
Yeah, it's local, it's for
Not
city
federal.
elections only.
I see.
And this bill is only for city elections and state elections.
Got it.
We're not getting into the federal, it's too complicated
Yeah.
once you get, you know, to that level.
Could I just, I'm sorry,
My husband and I have been deeply involved in politics for about 10 years. We would stand on the street corner and get signatures to get people on the ballot, only to experience abuse from the public because the adults are more ignorant than they should be. The idea of civics is excellent, but it has to really be broadened because the ordinary adult voter is sadly ignorant they cannot really make intelligent choices. And I have spent 24 years working in the Department of Education with young people. They have tremendous potential. However, they are very impressionable, they're very innocent, and they can be prey to people who would like to direct them in the wrong way. And the civics classes are incredibly important. I know that people have criminal records because of the fact that people change, that it's secret before the age of 18 at the Department of Ed with suspended students. The suspensions are hidden for the most part, and it is in theory possible to have a permanent record, but it's less than 1% of the cases would that be available to the public. It's to protect the children as they grow and as they develop. I'm very much in favor of incredibly lengthy, detailed training. I just wish they would do it for adults. I'm totally opposed to this proposal because 16-year-olds are too young and innocent and impressionable and can be taken advantage of. So I think 16 is too young. I'm just disappointed in the adults.
Well,
they're not ready to vote.
Can I just address that
Yeah.
point? Okay, so you're making a broad generalization about young people. I've been involved in education since 1972.
Right, but I've had bad experiences on the streets from nasty,
Adults.
impatient adults.
So let me pose this to you. We have a major movement in the United States comprised mostly of older adults that are following a candidate. I'm not going to bring up any names, who's a complete ignoramus and is spreading hatred.
Right,
It's 70 million adults.
yeah, I told you, I'm very
They're
disappointed
not
in the
innocent?
adults.
They're completely
I'm
hoodwinked.
very disappointed in
So,
the adults.
What I'm saying is isolating a 16 to 17-year-old for being immature is not an argument that resonates with me. Because I have found that when young people are given responsibility, their level of readiness goes up. The problem with young people is not their innocence, it's the fact that we infantilize them. We have low expectations about their capabilities, and we stereotype them.
Okay, I will
So-
stop, I will just say,
Okay.
the
Can I
level, excuse me, just 1 second, the level of abuse that I experienced on the street, trying to get signatures, to get people on the ballot, when adults didn't even know that you need that. And I'm done.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just, a fact, is civics still required and it's been, okay.
Civics have been required for years. They're starting to bring it back.
That's what, I knew
Right.
there was something about it.
Right. History courses, government courses, they've been required, for the social studies curriculum.
Yeah,
And one point on that, I investigated, and it's only one American government course, Borough of Manhattan Community College, to take a look at the syllabus, see what they teach over a semester. One day in the whole semester, they focus on voting. And on none of the days do they focus on state or city politics. It's all federal. I'm not saying federal is not important, but we're doing it backwards. People experience things at the local level before they be thinking about it. And a lot of that stuff is just so abstract. But if they can get it at the local level and then build up from there, yeah, it becomes more real to them.
I just want to build off of that because I'm involved with a youth voting rights movement, Generation Vote, similar to that.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
But from my own experience growing up in Brooklyn when I went to schools, education was focused on the federal level. I didn't know community boards existed. I didn't know how to get involved with anything. I didn't know how to vote. my entire community, none of us voted because we all thought our vote didn't matter because New York is blue and they'll always vote blue, and we didn't know anything about local politics or primaries or anything. And that's part of the ignorance that goes into adulthood. But if your studies have shown that if you're educated and involved, when you're younger, those habits for civic voting and all that go on into your adulthood. And if we improve the programs in the high schools and in practical ways where high schoolers can vote and they learn how to vote in high school and they learn how to research and do all the things that make them good participants in our democracy, those habits will go along with them into adulthood and help solve a lot of the issues that we're having in today's society. So I'm completely in support of this, and I think it's an important step to take.
And if you could talk to your organization about doing a letter of support, I could
Absolutely.
email you, with some of the background information and some of the other people involved, and maybe you can consider that. The other thing I also want to say related to that is the momentum is building and the attitudes towards young people is changing. When I was doing the community board campaigning initially in 2007, 2008, the stereotypes I got, we're not going to let a person that wears his pants down to his knees be eligible to join the community board, or talking about the negative stuff, negative. I see a lot less of that now. And I presented it well, my home board is Board 12 in Washington Heights. And I would have been happy if I got the vote to be 2-1 in favor. The vote was 33 in favor and 3 opposed. I almost fell out of my chair because I wasn't expecting, that type of support. Then it went to East Harlem, and it was a lower turnout, but still it was like 23-2 or something. Bronx, was unanimous in Board 4.
So I'm in favor of this because I think more involvement and more education is better than less.
Right.
I grew up in East Harlem. Both of my parents did not finish high school. I grew up in the projects.
Okay. Where in East Harlem did you go?
Lexington Houses, 98th Street, between Lexington and Berger. And I think proof that I was very involved. I was involved in the tenant patrol. At 16, I was the co-president.
Wow.
Everyone in the community knew me. So I think, and I'm sure when I walked south of 96th Street, people would look at me and would think negative stereotypes. But here I am today. But I wasn't aware that community boards existed. I wasn't involved that I could get involved in the community beyond this tenant patrol in Lexington Houses.
So 2 more examples of support that we picked up. One of them is Dr. Robert Fullylove, who is a professor at the Mailman School of Health with Columbia University, and also the Dean of Community and Minority Affairs. And he absolutely enthusiastically supported this. He wrote a support letter. He's also an alumni of SNCC. So he himself was a teenager when he first started doing civil rights work. And he understands the importance of starting young people very young. And the other is the League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters in Maine initially was approached because the governor had vetoed one city from being able to lower the voting age. And he didn't do it on the basis of the age, but the fact that one city should not be able to determine the voting age. It had to be the whole state. So what the league did is they commissioned a study, which if you go to League of Women Voters Maine, go to their page and then look for the study on lowering the voting age to 16. It's about 110 pages long. I'm just warning you. But
This is
just
Maine?
Maine, League of Voters Maine. They did comprehensive review of research, found no evidence that there's any difference between a 16, 17-year-old or an 18, 19, or 20-year-old in terms of cognitive ability, readiness to vote, any of that stuff.
I want to make sure we get more questions, but I want Ava, who's beneficiary of the 16
Okay.
on a community board.
Kristen? So yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that
Alex?
yeah, if Avi can go next after.
Yeah, we'll get both of our high school students to speak would be great. So Ava and then Avi.
So yeah, I'll just say I'm 17. I was appointed to the board when I was 16.
Congratulations.
And I'm just gonna say, I don't think that people my age are necessarily impressionable. I know some people may be, but I know people who I'm surrounded by care deeply about their surroundings and certain political issues. I think there's definitely a lack of civic education in the high school system, and that needs to be addressed. But I know that people are trying to make efforts in their communities. People are speaking out against issues they believe in. They're going to protest and have been for years. And our generation, we are going to be impacted by whoever is in our district. Our schools are impacted by decisions that are made by our local government. And all of our lives will be influenced by the decisions that politicians make now. So I think it's important that we should have a say. And again, there's no magical change that happens between the ages of 16 and 18. The only factor that could change someone's political awareness is civic education in and of itself. But a large percent of the population does not have that. And I'm just on the topic of civic education. I'm going to say I've learned nothing about local politics in schools. I've only learned about it through activities I do outside of school. But I'm just gonna say, one of the other programs I participate in is part of the New York Civil Liberties Union, where we go to Albany and lobby specific types of legislation to state senators and assembly people. If I can go and speak to politicians and ask them to sponsor types of legislation that will make an impact, I believe I should be able to vote for who could possibly sponsor this legislation.
What you do with ACLU, is that part of the youth section?
They have a teen activist project, which is basically a group of kids that come together to learn about specific civil rights issues and support the NYCLU legislative agenda each year. So
if we can get confirmation and assent from your youth group or that youth group, that would also help. Because one of the things we're doing is, in addition to community boards, we have to have more public cry out.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd be
groups and
happy
youth
to
led
join.
groups.
And Avi has a question online.
Yeah, hi. Well, first I want to thank you because I'm 16. So if it weren't for your work, I wouldn't be here right now. So thank you for that. And I want to say, I think the biggest argument for, well, not biggest, but one of the main arguments for this is that if people under 18 in America can be tried as adults, it's clear that the age is entirely arbitrary. So if we can be sent to adult prisons and be tried as adults, then how is it that we can't vote as adults? So I fully support this. And then I had one question. The state bills that you discussed today, would they allow for voting only in state elections or also for federal elections? I'm not clear on how that works.
The state and city elections.
Okay, thank you.
The federal elections will require federal action, including agreement by 2/3 of the state legislatures.
Okay.
So we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you.
I'm not sure if this is a question, but however we vote and push this or oppose this, is there anything we could add? You said civics is coming back into the schools.
It's been proposed and.
Okay, what can we do in support of that proposal? We as a board.
Yeah, so I could email you. I don't have off the top of my head the bill number that Robert Jackson. I could email that to the youth committee here, and you could look up the legislation and what you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
that's
Robert
essential.
Jackson's the author?
Yeah,
'Cause
he's
we were gonna
he's the
watch
lead
it.
sponsor.
Yeah.
And what other asks do you have for this committee tonight?
Other than voting in agreement for the letter of support, and every board is different. I don't know if it goes to the executive committee and then to the full board or straight to the full board.
So letter in agreement to whom?
It would be to I don't know if I gave you this sheet. Yeah.
Yes, I have this.
Yeah, we'll go to the two
Okay.
lead sponsors in the state and the two lead sponsors in the council.
Well, they're both in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. We
Yeah, Gail,
really
Sean,
direct.
Yeah.
I don't know, Hoylman and.
Yeah, he is
Oh, there you go.
as well.
And Robert Jackson as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and Robert Jackson.
And Robert Jackson.
Yeah.
So
Oh, so you got four.
yeah, you hit the right spot with the bullseye for those 4 elected officials. So do we have any more questions for Al, or do we want to discuss what we want to do? This sounds like it's pretty widely supported. So I think the next step would be if we put together, this is my community board knowledge being lacking, but I believe we have to put together a resolution first, bring that to full board. When that resolution passes, we can then spin it out into a letter to the appropriate elected officials.
Can I just add something? Usually when you have the resolution, the committee votes on it. You might have 100% yes, you might have 100% no, there's something in between. And at that point, when you go to the full board, it says how many people voted yes and how many people voted no.
Correct. Yeah. So what I was going to do now, though, one thing I've noted that we do at the committee level is rather than drafting the entire resolution and bringing it back, like just month to month schedule.
Send it around.
What I'd like to do now is vote if we want a resolution in that spirit, even though we don't have the exact language to it, that would support the idea of lowering the minimum age to 16 for state and city elections. And if that passes here, we need someone on this committee to raise their hand to write that resolution, which we would then share electronically so that we could all feed back to it. Once it's edited and we have the vote from this meeting tonight, we would bring that forward to the next full board meeting.
May I just make one suggestion? Part of any resolution should be our support for in-depth civics.
Yeah, I was gonna say the resolution should include
Yeah.
a whereas.
I mean, just as an
You know,
example,
the whereas
most
so and so
adults
it's important.
in this
And
area.
Al is gonna send
The details on the civic
details,
education
so
background,
we
yeah.
could add that
Yeah.
as a whereas.
Most adults in this area have no idea that people cannot get on the ballot unless you have a certain number of signatures on a petition.
Yeah.
Instead of being grateful that people are out on the street doing this, they're abusive and threatening.
Just as a point of information, as part of the packet, there's a community board 12.
And an 11 one, they're actually
Right.
pretty handy.
But board 12 actually has a resolution format.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
We could just.
Right, so you could look at it in the language.
And make sure the whereas for the civic education and support of that bill is,
Yeah. Okay, so are we ready to take a vote on drafting a resolution? Ask your question.
Are we voting to support all of the bills that were mentioned, or are we voting to support the contents of the bills separately, or like what exactly are we trying to put into the
So
resolution?
actually, I think Kevin had a good idea. Do you guys have in front of you, or maybe I'll pass it around, this community board 12 resolution is a good model for it. I'm not saying we will copy them exactly, but the basic gist, and we don't have the detailed language of our resolution, is we would name the bills that exist.
Yes.
Yeah. So we name and cite the bills that exist, both of which are, all of which, sorry, are for lowering the minimum age to vote for 16 for state elections and for city elections. So first, let's settle that, if we want to go with that, and then we'll discuss the next part.
Yeah, what board 12 did is, and you don't have to do this, but what they did is.
They have it.
Be it resolved was to support the state legislation and support the city council resolution.
Yeah.
And that's the way they ended it.
This is a nice resolution.
It's great. Yeah, the work is done for us.
Seriously. I think there should be a,
See this?
be it resolved for the civic education
For
part.
civics.
Yes.
Rather than a whereas, I think you should make it a be it resolved.
Be it resolved, but they ended with supporting the state
So,
city.
a resolved clause to say, be it resolved, we support greater civic education.
Or we urge the city to implement greater civic education, something like that.
Yeah, city and state, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I would include the word mandatory, just to make it.
Nice.
great idea.
You think
Yeah.
we get away
In all
with
high
that?
schools.
In all high schools.
I wish they
Every
could
single
do
high
it for adults, mandatory.
And so do I, but there's only so much we can urge. We could bring that to the, I don't know what they call the committee here. It's the new citizen committee or the aging.
There's
committee?
a task force, yeah.
I used the word aging once and I was reprimanded. I said,
But then even introducing civic education to schools earlier than high school could be really beneficial, just so students have time to understand politics and see it around them. And especially if the voting age were to be lowered to 16, it would be helpful to have civic education introduced in middle school. That's what I thought.
You look up the Robert Jackson legislation in Albany, it starts in the 5th grade or 4th grade.
Fifth grade?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's. Do I need a second to call the vote?
Second.
All right, let's call the vote to write a resolution in support of lowering the minimum age to 16 at city and state level and include the need for mandatory civic education. All in favor?
Bobby's voting as well.
And Michele?
Are they voting?
Yeah, his hand is up. I see it.
Yeah.
That's our
So
total
that's
seven.
it.
That's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 in favor, 1 opposed.
Okay,
I'm
wait,
not
hang on,
totally
all,
opposed.
wait,
Oh.
let's get through our process. All opposed? None, all abstaining?
I'm not abstaining. I'm in favor of the civic education provision and opposed to voting at the age of 16. So I'm not opposed.
Yeah.
I'm mixed.
Okay, so then, hang on, let's just do this, the packaged one with
So
everything
you're
in
against
it,
the package?
and then I'll float a second one,
Quick,
okay?
I need to float out there, maybe just before the vote, including another provision of the resolution that could encourage elected officials to host workshops that adults can go to have civic education, just like specific presentations that could be run for anyone interested in learning more about government.
Great
affairs.
idea.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I feel like that's a separate issue, but I don't know.
that will be in next round. So in the one we floated with a state and city at 16 and civic education, we had 8 in favor, 0 opposed, any abstaining, and any for cause. 0 for cause, 0 abstaining. Then we float another resolution.
Or should we just
Hang on.
split the different pieces? So one is about the age, one is about civic education, one is about the adult.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to think through. So we did one, could we bundle the civic education in the schools with the encourage electeds to host workshops for
I think anyone who's interested.
Civic
high school
education.
students or like anyone who doesn't have access to civic education could possibly attend these workshops. So
public workshops
Yeah.
could be like the key phrase. But we're gonna bundle that with a mandated civics education requirement. Yeah. So, and then that means we'll do a third.
A third, are we talking about through resolution?
That's what I'm wondering, which.
It's
It's a civic education.
I think you're only proposing the civic education.
Right,
but
so-
Standalone.
So do we want to take a vote on a standalone for civic education only?
Or can I ask? So Audrey, if it was all bundled together in one,
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
if everything is bundled in one resolution, would you just vote against it?
Yes.
Okay, should we just do it that way? Just have one? Does it need
Yeah.
to be?
Which I thought we basically did,
Okay.
right? So
But
that
there's
vote we just
there's
took,
no reason why we can't do a separate one in civic education and this young lady's idea about, availability.
Well, right now,
So-
the gist of this is voting.
Voting
Right to
age.
vote,
yeah,
okay, 16 and 17. So we have to deal with that.
um,
But I agree if we can, when you say bundle, you mean somehow include.
Yeah.
And then you would be voting against the prime resolution, which is the right to vote.
Can I just make one
Right.
point of clarification is, once you have in the language that you support the existing legislation, that legislation already includes civic education. But you might do a separate resolution that goes beyond the 8 hours, making it,
I'm not interested in number of hours, I think it should, but you're going to have to vote against something at some point.
She already
Which is-
voted against.
No, she
Well, she
didn't.
didn't.
She
She
didn't.
didn't vote, because we have
Right.
9 of us,
Right.
and 8 people voted.
There's several ways to handle this. One is to have discrete resolutions, one on the age and a totally other one on civic education. It's a possibility. There's a second way to handle it, which is to put them all together and you vote for everything or nothing. I prefer to have a choice
Yeah.
and be able to vote yes on something. and
So
no
we
on
would be
something.
willing to take to full board 2 separate resolutions, one on age and one on civic education.
I think.
I think we should combine them. I personally think we should combine them, and if there's a lot of opposition at board, we can always split it at the full board.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I agree with Avi, because already the majority of us agree with it to begin with, 8 out of 8 to 0.
Yeah.
So why
8
do we
out of
go
9,
back, right,
yeah.
8 of 9, so why don't we have to go back and do all these separate resolutions? Just a waste of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one thing I would want to avoid is trying to split it out at full board. I do feel like it gets very messy.
It would be a
Full board, I'm like,
disaster.
you come with a resolution, that's it. Like, it gets a little nutty when we start like. when we get- Yeah, fine
I
line.
disagree with that, but do it however way you want.
But what was you had a proposal to,
Basically the same point. Procedurally, it was already voted on and passed. I think that we could take note of her reason for disagreeing, what part she disagrees with, what part she agrees with, but I don't think we need to do more votes on it. I think we could move on to that last point of having separate lessons for just the community in general.
But the vote did not include a disagreement.
Well, she didn't vote
She
at all.
didn't vote at all.
Well, that's what I mean. She didn't abstain and she didn't disagree.
Well,
You could redo the vote.
we could redo the vote. Like, I think there's such a thing as someone just simply not voting.
Right.
Because they have that
Not voting for
agency.
cause.
No, they don't, you don't know, you'd have to have cause then.
The cause is she doesn't agree.
And cause is a
It's
conflict
succeed.
of interest, it's
Yeah.
not any cause. It's a specific cause, we just use a shorthand. So what I think the easiest thing to do is simply reword it. It is all bundled together, so it is as we voted. The first time, we will have a new vote on that. And that is that the age coming down to minimum voting age dropping to 16 for state and city laws. And we will cite the current legislation that exists around it. And in support of greater civic education, which would include mandated civics education in the schools and would encourage electeds to host public workshops on civic education.
Okay, so please include me as a no vote.
When we get there, okay, so those are all together. Then, so that is our draft resolution. We are voting on that with age and civics education. So all in favor, please raise our hand.
Eight.
Okay, and all opposed? Okay, and all abstaining? And all abstaining for cause?
Just because.
Yes. So the resolution passes 8 to 1 to 0 to 0. I do think, and I am sorry, Audrey, that it doesn't include what you wanted, so we will make note of it and comment on it at full board when we're introducing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's very kind.
But what I do want is a volunteer to draft this resolution. Are Ava and Avi interested in drafting it by any chance?
I am happy to do stuff after I get through midterms, but.
I hear you.
I'm with
Okay,
you on that, but
all right,
Yeah.
I respect that. So you're the lead on this then, Kevin. You get to draft it.
Okay, I'll draft it and then you can kind of make comments
Sounds
to
good.
it and then I can circulate it to the full committee.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
After next week,
I
That's great.
have to leave. I get up at 4:45 a.m. I have to work at 7.
Wow.
I can't stay
God
any
bless.
longer
Oh,
than this.
okay, no
Please
worries.
forgive me.
No,
Thank you for coming. Yeah,
It's
thank you
my
for your-
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. So we are running a few minutes over because I did want to circle back to our school reciting. It's 8:34. To our school reciting issue. I wholeheartedly agree with Blanche in that we do not have the full picture, so I don't feel comfortable taking a position on what the DOE should do at this point, whether they should, whether they shouldn't. But the issue that is worth discussing for us right now is Avi's idea of simply arguing that there should be a more inclusive or slower process. So I have some thoughts on that, but I want to hear everybody's opinion on that. I'll tell you where I think it's at.
So,
Does anyone have?
yeah, so I'm in favor of doing that. I think we don't have enough information. And I would hate for us to go before a full board.
Mhm.
And the question becomes, well, what are the folks at 140, the parents, 145 feel? Or worst case scenario is we've got a bunch of people from 145
Turn up, yeah.
that turn up that shoot us down. And so I think that's a big risk. I thought Avi's idea was great. I think the process needs to be slowed down. It sounds like there was not enough input from all the stakeholders in this situation.
Mhm.
Get that and more transparency in how they came to the decision.
And just committee members.
Right.
Sorry. Yeah.
I want to say something when you have a minute.
Yep, go ahead, speak.
I looked through the chancellor's regs, of which I'm only familiar with some, but it appears that this issue with PS 145 and West Prep is addressed in Chancellor's Regs A-190. So we should take a look at that to see if the Department of Education is following their own regulations and what they are and what the timing will be. Because I think it might be a little difficult to tell the Department of Education to do things on our timetable as to opposed to what their regs say they have to do. Just a suggestion.
That's actually the point I was gonna pull up. So thank you, Michelle. I was trying to on the side, look up the chancellor's regulation because I knew there are regs around the timing.
Mhm.
So I feel like we need to reference that before we come up with our own independent time frame. I am a little concerned about us developing one because it doesn't seem to be based on what are we basing our time frame on? What experience or knowledge or data of the process are we bringing to that? Then this is not something I think we could write because I just don't know how it could ever be written. But emotively and anecdotally from being in this process with other schools, it does seem like these regulations came about for this very purpose. People wanted communities included more. They have a set time frame. They are really held to these dates and they're good about holding to the dates because it's easy to hold them accountable to. That doesn't mean that it's meaningful engagement. And Sedalia was starting to mention that town hall. And I've been to quite a few of them and they're really emotionally draining, to be honest, because families and parents are coming to town halls and spilling their hearts out and talking from a very heartfelt place. And the DIOS is, bureaucrats and DOE officials who just sit there and listen. But they're actually told to stay stone-faced, right? To not have an opinion one way or another. And I don't know how, the more meaningful thing is, does it influence it? Are they taking it on board? But as far as hitting the dates, I feel like they kind of do that already.
Yeah, and just a quick glance through these regs. They may have to have a joint town hall. They may not be able to have one for one school and one for another. I'm just saying, it may pay to quickly go through these regs to see what they're not doing. Because you're right, they can keep to the time schedule, and if you tell them to use a different time schedule, they can go to the regs and say, oh no, we have to do this. But if we don't, or the schools don't know the regs, the parents in the schools don't know what the regs are, then maybe there's some maneuvering by the Department of Education. But so it pays for the schools to look at the regs. And for us
Yeah,
to look at the regs.
I think that is a good next step. We should look at the regs. We should recommend they do. I see, Avi, you have your hand up. Go ahead and speak.
Yeah, so I'm very new, so I don't know much about the regulations and what the rules are. But maybe a way we could get around it, instead of saying like, oh, extend it by this many days or whatever, just more vaguely do it. And maybe also, instead of talking about the time frame, we talk more about ensuring that they do get the community input and they do get in the appropriate way. And then we do the time frame condition on that. Like, as long as they fulfill that, okay, but they have to make sure there is ample time to make sure that happens. They do have to make sure there are ample input meetings and town halls. Maybe that's the way we could go about it. But again, I don't know the rules.
Yeah.
So sorry, I have to go. I have family dinner, but thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. We are getting late.
Kristen, can I ask?
Yeah.
I have a question and a comment. The question is, was it made clear what problem is trying to be solved by moving? No. So we don't even know what the start of this is?
At PS 145, there definitely is an overcrowding issue. I mean, she said that proportionally, PS 145 hasn't had any more students than any other school. But I know at PS 145, I did an article, I wrote an article about this 9 months ago. So I talked to a lot of parents and Naveed, who said that a lot of students at PS 145, they can't have the extracurricular programming they used to, and students are being taught in like libraries or other facilities because they just don't have enough space to accommodate all their new students. So there are other space options other than the Ascension School. I think you commented about that earlier, but like this Ascension School isn't the only option for spacing. But even if the West Prep doesn't have a space issue, PS 145 definitely does. And there was a parent petition that got over 200 signatures last year, begging the DOE to give them more space. So
The petition for
145. So it's a co-located building, right, with two separate schools. So this happens frequently, that one school starts to grow and needs more space. And that seems to be the case, that 145 is growing, they need more space. So then the argument at this point seems to be, where do they come up with that space, right? And so now one of the proposals is to move the 11 classrooms from West Prep to this new building.
Right.
The other proposal that the superintendent has brought to some of their meetings, but I'm not sure what else has gone with it, would be to split off certain grades or sections from 145 and move them into this new building, the Ascension School building.
Right.
I do believe, and Sedalia didn't make this clear, or she did say us, that with the Ascension School building, it was the Catholic school, it closed down last year. It was in the media because it closed like overnight, so parents were like told in June that it wouldn't be there in September. And the DOE came in and has secured a 15-year lease on the space, which it does do for school buildings. A 15-year lease doesn't mean that's all they'll ever get, right? That means that they've got that so far in this one lease. We have another one that school building that Wes is in is a leased building, and that's on a long lease, right? So they will negotiate long leases to use for school buildings. That does happen around the city.
Got it. So my one other comment is, I fully recognize that we need to hear from 145, that is a huge missing piece of this puzzle. That said, the turnout, both in person and online, was pretty significant. And I don't want us to be in the position of not sort of doing something.
Recognizing that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And I also don't want us to have our process sort of take over our ability to actually have a voice.
You mean the turnout tonight?
Yeah,
Okay, but we don't know if 145
No.
people knew.
even if 145 brings 100 people, right?
Okay.
I still think that this was a substantial
Sure.
number of
Yeah.
people for us that we should not.
And it was passionate, it was
Exactly.
personal and all
Absolutely.
of that.
Because I think it would just look really bad for us.
But the we and
I've heard
they.
this enough to
say
bucket
thank you.
mentality.
Yeah, it does put us in an odd position though, because I am like, I want to be able to recognize what both school communities will bring to us. So I'm not sure if that's going to look like us advocating for something specific,
Right.
or if that's going to be more of a, like a process and voices position. I haven't like,
Well, you
I don't have
know
a
what
concept.
145
Yeah.
is gonna bring.
And I'm pretty I don't know 100%, but I'm pretty confident they're gonna say they wanna stay in. Generally, people wanna stay in their school building.
Sure,
Yeah.
But I think,
but it may not be us against them, because I certainly got that feeling tonight. And it was uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I feel like PS 145 definitely needs more space, but I definitely do not feel like the solution is pushing another established community out.
Yeah.
So I think that there needs to be other options that we should either explore or encourage elected officials to explore, because they are an established, thriving school
Mhm.
that have so many parents talk about their positive experiences there, and so many kids are being influenced by the education they receive there. So we need to find a solution that benefits both parties, because West Prep should not have to be pushed out just because 145, which is also another thriving school community helping so many people, does need more space.
Yeah.
There needs to be some sort of balance.
Great.
I agree.
Well, it sounds as if it may be that somebody has to go. But it should be definitely adequate and space that is on a par with what, if it's West Prep, with what they have now.
Yeah, I have in the history of my CEC tenure, they moved 2 schools. Both times they came with a lot of bells and whistles for that move. Like a lot, anything they could do to say, we're gonna give you a nice space and we're gonna treat you well. Right. So that also exists as a possibility for whichever community kind of goes for it.
Although that doesn't seem to be what has been proposed thus far.
Correct. Yeah. But I think there's nothing to move on that right now, so I think we could close this meeting. Motion to adjourn,
Second.
adjourned.
It was a good
Thank
meeting.
you all very much. Thank you, Al.